YouTube? Today we're going to be debunking the debunk on evolution by this guy named Messenger of Truth. If you don't know who he is, he makes a lot of very fundamentalist Christianity content, and that what comes with that is the fact that he denies evolution, just basic science. The most popular work comes from his reaction towards Joe Bartolozzi and why he doesn't believe in God. So let's just go straight to it.
So I just wanted to make this quick video proving that evolution isn't scientific, it's not a valid theory, and it is more so a religious presupposition that atheists hold.
So already from the jump, you could immediately tell he's just coming from a place of bad faith. He doesn't really care for what the actual science says, and he just is going to immediately assume that evolution equals atheism. Evolution does not equal any religious or, non-religious ideologies. It's just science. I just really want to get that out the way.
Now, before I actually refute the theory of evolution, we just have to point out the obvious fact that atheists still cannot account for the origin of life itself. They know that they have absolutely no explanation for the first living organism that appeared on Earth. So
now, he's not completely wrong. Hold on. Give me a second. This does not mean that we are completely clueless on the matter. For example, we still have a lot of organic molecules that we have made in a lab, like nucleic acids like DNA and RNA. We made proteins and various carbohydrates and lipids. There's plenty of macromolecules that are very much accounted for when it comes to organic, life. But we do have some of the puzzle pieces not completely solved. This doesn't mean evolution is debunked, though. The fact of the matter is, when we look into the fossil record, around 3.8 to 3.5 billion years ago, life does appear. And not only does life appear, it appears in a very, very simple way, in a manner that we would expect under an evolutionary model. And according to all of our hypotheses on how life arose and the conditions that were necessary for it to arise, everything is lining up. The only thing we don't have is the mechanisms in which it happened, but we do know it happened because of the fossil record. Still, evolution does not tackle on to the origin of life. Origin of life and evolution are two different things, and in order to have evolution, you need to have life, so we can just move on from this.
Second thing I have to point out before I completely refute evolutionary theory is that we are talking about history here. If you want to know what happened in the past, who lived in the past, the primary source that we have to use is eyewitness testimony.
This history and this history are two completely different histories. One of them deals with human affairs, so eyewitness testimony would be pretty useful for this one, and the other one deals with science. Let me use an example to why you can still use or still infer that past events happened without eyewitness testimony. His DNA, his fingerprints, and his bloody shoe prints were all over the crime scene. And coincidentally, he also was not at work on the day and the time of the event. Also, he did suspiciously leave a voicemail right before the event saying he's going to stab him 28 times. And the autopsy report did come back with the victim having 28 stabs. But there was no eyewitness testimony, so there's really just no evidence or proof that he committed the murder. I know he did it, I just can't prove it. Clearly, we can infer that past events happened or occurred without eyewitness testimony. All you need is evidence. People who commit autopsies do this all the time. If you're saying that the only way we could infer that, events happened in the past is through eyewitness testimony, then you're delegitimizing so many careers. And if I had to relate this to evolution, paleontologists do the same thing that autopsy people do. They just do it with fossils and not crime scenes. I could make a very long video about how impressive it is that paleontologists can derive a lot of different information through fossils, even if the fossils are fragmentary, but this is not the video for that. Anyways, this entire point was dumb. We can just move on to his actual argument.
Now, at this point, there's actually a second miracle that we would have to grant to the atheist for this theory, and that would be the miracle that these organisms, which are not conscious yet, somehow are trying to survive, and that it's somehow beneficial for its own species to keep going on. I mean, that's literally the origin of the word natural selection. It's nature doing the choosing. We have an unconscious entity choosing things, making decisions. Okay, so once again, let's grant them that miracle that nature is making decisions. So once again, as atheists, they cannot deny that they are just as religious as Christians are and everyone else. They worship nature. Nature makes the choices. I'm here because of nature. Nature created me. Nature did this. Nature did that. It's nature. Nature is their God. Now,
This is not the first time I've ever heard a creationist use this as like a critique against natural selection, and it's a massive straw man and misconception about natural selection. The reason why is because natural selection technically doesn't select for anything. Let me explain. Let's say we have 100 simple microorganisms, and let's say that 20% of them die because their environment is too cold for them. And then another 10% dies because they were just too weak to obtain their energy source. Then another 5% die because their genetic mutations screw them up so bad that they become just too disgusting to exist. And then 25% of them just don't end up reproducing at the end of their life. They weren't weak, they just didn't reproduce. It could have been because they didn't have the genes that gave them that desire. Maybe they just didn't bother. Maybe they couldn't find a mate, or they just didn't get enough energy to do it. It could be infinite reasons, but they just couldn't reproduce. Nobody chose for any of this stuff to happen. It just happened. And when you have a bunch of organisms that are capable of reproducing, this stuff happens all the time. And when stuff like this happens all the time, science will go about their day just observing nature, and then when they see a pattern of something happening over and over again, they'll throw a label on it. Pattern like these will be labeled natural selection. And that's what it is. No one chose for any of this to happen. It just happened because of how the universe is set up. This is like saying that evaporation creates vapor because it decided that certain molecules are just too hot to be in their liquid state. Apparently, this next clip I'm about to show you is his actual legit argument, because he only had two. Spoiler alert, the second one is the worst one I've ever heard in my entire life. So just brace yourself.
Now, the moment you've been waiting for. This is the killer of the theory of evolution. This is the thorn in the side of every evolutionist. The reason why the theory is a false theory, it cannot work, is because it, by definition, is untestable, unobservable, and of course, unprovable. This is because there is no way to independently verify whether or not a certain organism will be better fit to survive than other organisms, other than simply looking at which organism survived. A similar kind of theory would be a theory that says all of the best presidents are named George Washington. That's something that we can test out. Let's take all the best presidents and find out whether or not their names are George Washington. What we can't do is look at all the best presidents and automatically assume that their names are George Washington. And this is what the theory of evolution does. These are the ones that have survived, therefore they were the most fit to survive. And so it's essentially survival of the survivors.
So I legit sat at like my desk with like a paper in hand trying to write this script for like hours because I was trying to wrap my head around this whole argument. This is essentially what he's talking about. So he gives an example about wolves, and there was a group of wolves that were just, regular beta wolves, and then there was a bunch of alpha wolves that ended up coming about through just, I'm assuming, mutations. The alpha wolves are just more athletic, more stronger, just can get their prey easier. And because of that, they outcompeted the beta wolves, and the alpha wolves remained on top, and the beta wolves got wiped out. He is saying that we cannot determine who is more fit because we don't know whether or not the alpha wolves will get heart attacks at a younger age because of their overuse of steroids. This doesn't make any sense. What determines a creature to be more fit over another creature is whether or not it's able to, 1, reproduce, and then 2, live long enough to reproduce. As simple as that. And whether or not the creature is fit also is relative to the environment. If it has adaptations that helps it do those two things, then it is more fit than the creature that can't do those two things or is less successful than by going about doing those two things. There's an example of a Mexican fish who, are found in the cave, and their regular ancestors that aren't in the cave have eyes and they work just fine, but the cave fish in Mexico, they don't have eyes. They lost the ability to see. Now, normally this would be a bad thing. It can't see, it's blind, it's handicapped. But this fish lives in the caves, and because it lives in the caves, it no longer needs to see because it can't see with or without the eyes. Due to this, it uses the extra energy that it would have used to put into the eyes into other parts, which allows it to have a slightly more successful chance of reproducing. So fitness is completely relative to the environment. And mind you, the organisms that inhabit the same environment also play into factor of the environment. So if the beta wolves really couldn't survive, then that wouldn't necessarily mean that they're less fit than the alpha wolves. And even if the alpha wolves are too roided up to survive and they get heart attacks at a younger age, as long as it doesn't intervene with these two things, then it's Gucci. It's okay that it gets heart attacks because it's still able to do those, one, reproduce, and two, live long enough to reproduce. This whole entire point makes no sense. Now, before I get into his grand finale, his magnus opus argument on, evolution and why it's wrong, I need to point out this. In his background, he has plenty of anime posters. Somehow, he has 2 Attack on Titan posters, the only duplicate poster on this entire wall. Attack on Titan is the only anime that I know of that talks about evolution. Zeke literally has a whole yap session to Armin about evolution. He doesn't believe in any of this. That thing lived 500 million years ago. I'm sorry, I just had to say that. I love Attack on Titan. And man, and if he was into One Piece, I don't know what I would do with myself. Unless hopefully he's not a fan of that show either. Are you ready, guys? This is his final argument. Let's see evolution get brought down to its knees.
Now, the number one way that we know evolution is false is because of Exodus 20:11. For in 6 days...
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. That was his actual final argument. If you don't believe me, look at his video. It's called Debunking Evolution in 9 minutes. If you liked this video, thank you. If you watched to the end, also thank you. Leave a like if you want to see more. Please, I'm begging. Leave a comment if you want. Yeah, I'm going to be reading all the comments. Drop a suggestion of who maybe you even want to see me react to in the future. All right, that's it. See ya.